In this video, our group are going to discuss whether Australian firms may be looking to expand into Malaysia. The year 2018 marks the 10th anniversary of the food outbreak of the international financial crisis series. It is also an important turning point in the major development, transformation, and adjustment of the world economy, deeply affected by the resurgency of anti-globalization and the increasingly serious impacts of trade protectionism on international trade. The year 2019 faced more uncertain and unstable factors. In this video, we are going to talk about the background of Malaysia, globalization, economic development, and human development, cultural, industry that Malaysia should specialize in using David Ricardo argument, and which industry Australia should specialize in when looking to trade with other countries, and conclusions. Then let's move to the background. For the economy, Malaysia has emphasized export-oriented manufacturing to fuel its economic growth, using the comparative advantage of a relatively inexpensive but educated labor force, well-developed infrastructure, political stability, and an undervalued currency. Malaysia has attracted considerable foreign investment, especially for Japan and Taiwan. For the cultural part, Malaysia has a multi-party political system. The country has held free election and generally has changed prime minister peacefully. All citizens who are at least 21 years old are permitted to vote. The communities of Malaysia have been affected profoundly by British colonial rule and Western cultural influence, especially in education and institution forms. For political system, Malaysia is a federal constitutional monarchy. The Constitution of Malaysia, which is the supreme law of the country, provides that judicial power of federation should be vested in two high courts and also in subordinate courts. There are religion courts in those Malay states that are established under Islam law. These Islam courts are governed by states, not federal legislation.
We will first begin by looking at the effect globalization has on Malaysia and determine whether it has been beneficial or a cost to the nation. Globalization is a multi-dimensional process characterized by the growing interdependence of the world's economies, cultures, and population, brought about by cross-border trade in goods and services, technology, and flows of investment, people, and information. Despite being a developing country, Malaysia is one of the most successful nations in Southeast Asia. Since their integration into the world market, this move has played a key role in the development of the Malaysian economy, encouraging expansion into higher value-added and services-based manufacturing, essentially transforming from an agrarian-based economy to an industrialized economy. Under the A.T. Kearney Foreign Policy Globalization Index, which measured and ranked a country's level of globalization based on 4 baskets, in 2004 Malaysia was found to be ranked 20th against 61 other countries. Using a more recent measure which looks at 100 countries in 2018, the KOF Index of Globalization measures the index based on 3 key dimensions: economic, social, and political. As such, Malaysia recorded a KOF index of 81.14, positioning 27 in its level of global integration, maintaining a very high position considering it is still a developing country. In the 1990s, under the governing of Prime Minister Mahathir bin Mohamad, the Malaysian government implemented changes to become a more globalized nation, adopting the conceptual assumptions of globalization, mainly privatization and liberalization. Originally, natural resources such as palm oil and rubber had been the main element of Malaysia's trading performance. However, the liberalization of trade barriers and changes in taxing policies, in addition to the introduction of restrained macroeconomic policies, resulted in the evolution of Malaysia's trading performance. The attraction of export-oriented direct foreign investments in the manufacturing sector and ventures into high-tech industries have evidently become the driving force in Malaysia's economic development. By expanding the nation's economy onto a global scale, the Malaysian government had liberalized various services, including telecommunication, education, tourism services, and healthcare, which had enabled the economy to expand away from labor-intensive activities towards higher value-added and services-based manufacturing businesses, therefore accelerating Malaysia's inflow of higher foreign investment and technological advances. Globalization has been the most beneficial for capital owners and the highly skilled workforce, providing opportunities to take advantage of the larger market. As a result, it has opened the Malaysian economy to more domestic employment opportunities, greater capacity and competitiveness of the domestic firms in larger markets, subsequently expanding the consumption of domestic products and therefore the growth of income. Whilst globalization provides various benefits for Malaysia, there are also negative impacts on the country. With 75% of Malaysian manufacturing produced by foreign entities, it has enabled the powerful multinational companies to intrude in the local culture and override local traditions. Malaysia is complexly made up of various ethnic groups: Malays, Chinese, Indians, and indigenous people cohabiting multi-religiously and multiculturally, and as such, through integration of world trade, the exposure of Western values and ideas adopted into the Malaysian community can be conflicting against the Malaysian cultural values and political administration, hindering the government to enforce policies and interventions favourable to their own economy. Furthermore, with the rise in manufacturing and value-added and services-based sectors, a strong unequal distribution of wealth is experienced between the classes of the various ethnic groups in Malaysia, especially those who are unskilled and lack the higher level of education required to be able to work in these increased job creations. Through thorough analysis of the effects of globalization, indeed, Malaysia are winners of globalization. Despite the downfalls of their integration into the world markets, Malaysia has overall been able to take advantage of the opportunities to benefit their nation. They are one of the few developing countries that have gained from an economic globalization in which are able to access the world markets and participate in free trade with other partnering nations and continue to advance and prosper.
Then let's move to the economic development. Malaysia, as one of the more developed countries in Southeast Asia, Malaysia has a stable and sound financial system. However, as an open market economy, Malaysia's financial system will undoubtedly be affected by the economic turmoil. In 1997, the Asian financial crisis hit Malaysia's financial system hard. On September 2nd, 1998, the Malaysian government implemented a fixed exchange rate system and strictly controlled the outflow of foreign exchange. With the improvement of economic conditions on July 21, 2005, the Malaysian government implemented the floating exchange rate system under its management and greatly relaxed the foreign exchange control measures, which create a good environment for foreign investments and strengthens the ability of resist risk. It withstood the test of financial crisis in 2009 and greatly improved the financial safety factor. The currency of Malaysia is Ringgit Malaysia. Foreign businessmen can change ringgit at banks and currency exchange offices. All banks in Malaysia can cash travelers' checks. According to statistics of Malaysian Bureau of Statistics, the import and export of goods in Malaysia registered $358.42 billion in 2016, 4.7% lower than the same period last year. Of this amount, export totaled as $189.74 billion, down 4.8%. Imports total US $168.68 billion, down 4.2%. The trade surplus was US $21.606 billion, down 12.2%. Malaysia has beaten nearly 80 countries to become the world's most attractive place to invest, thanks to business-friendly environments and robust economic growth. According to overall, to create a more attractive investment environment, the Malaysian government offers the following preferential measures to the encouraged industry, which is shown in the PowerPoints. According to the World Investment Report 2016, released by UNCTAD, Malaysia attracted US $11.121 billion of foreign investment in 2015. By the end of 2015, Malaysia's stock of foreign investment stood at US $117.6644 billion. In 2016, Malaysia approved an investment of Rm 207.9 billion, up to 7.7% year-on-year, involving 4,097 projects, and foreign direct investment increased by 63.4% year-on-year. The Malaysian government encouraged foreign investment in the manufacturing sector, and foreign investment has become an important factor to promote the economic development of Malaysia. In 2016, foreign investment in Malaysia's manufacturing sector mainly focused on petroleum products, natural gas, electronics, appliances, transportation equipment, non-metallic mineral products, and other industries. In 2016, the major source of foreign investment in manufacturing approved by Malaysian governments were the United States, Japan, Hong Kong, mainland China, Singapore, South Korea, and Taiwan. In 2015, Malaysia's total investment amounts to Rm 370 billion and consumption amounts to Rm 256.3 billion. Agriculture, mining, manufacturing, construction, and service account for 8.9%, 9%, 23%, 4.4%, and 53.5% of GDP, respectively. Malaysia is the world's largest producer of palm oil. Among them, tourism provides a powerful driving force for the Malaysian economy. Malaysia has the advantage of being a tourist destination due to its cultural feature and unventilated aesthetic customs, as well as being a place near the equator with external summer and external sunshine. Malaysia's tourism revenue reached 20,864 million on 2018, up from 19,160 million on 2017. Malaysia's tourism revenue data are updated annually, with an average of US 4,339 million for the period 1981 to 2018. The highest number on 2014 was 22,009 million, while the lowest number on 1981 was 435 million.
First, let's take a look at what is human development. Human development is one of the core considerations of a country's level of development. The HDI is a summary measures of assessing long-term progress in three basic dimensions of human development: long and healthy life, access to knowledge, and a decent standard of living. We selected two specific years in 2013 and 2018 as a comparison to compare the trends of Human Development Index in Malaysia. Malaysia's HDI value for 2013 is 0.773, which is in the high human development category, positioning the country at 62 out of 187 countries and territories. Between 1980 to 2013, there are significant increase across all dimensions in the HDI. According to the data point of view, from 2013 to 2018, Malaysia's Human Development Index rose by 0.029, which is 0.802 recently, and the ranking increased by 5 from 62 to 57. Malaysia's Human Development Level Index is 0.803, which means that Malaysia's economic and social development level is relatively high among other member countries. According to reports in different years, although Malaysia's Human Development Index is growing but still far behind from the very high human development countries. Moreover, in many cases, Malaysia's position is still far away from the performance of different indicators of the developed country of the world. Through Malaysia is committed to be a developed nation by 2020. So for transforming Malaysia as a developed nation, it needs to concentrate to accelerate a very good performance of human development indicators. Finally, we discussed which measure has greater significance to an Australian firm, considering establishing a presence in that country. In general, economic development is of greater significance to an Australian firm considering establishing a presence in that country, as both the economic strength of people in Malaysia and the preferential policies for foreign investment in Malaysia provide convenience for Australian interferes to enter the Malaysia's economic environment. In terms of economic development, Malaysia's tourism industry provides strong support for Malaysia, and the preferential policies of the government also make the Malaysian market welcome by foreign countries.
Now we are going to talk about cultural distance between Malaysia and Australia. The theory that I will use to determine this is the Hofstede's cultural dimension. The Hofstede's cultural dimension theory is developed by Geert Hofstede. It is a framework that is used to understand the differences in culture across countries. It is also used to see the dimensions of culture and their impact on business setting. In this theory, there are 6 dimensions, which are power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, uncertainty avoidance, long versus short-term orientation, and indulgence versus restraint. So this is a graph that shows the comparison of all 6 dimensions of Hofstede's cultural dimension between Australia and Malaysia. The most visible differences between Malaysia and Australia is power distance and individualism. Power distance is defined as the extent to which the less powerful members of institutions and organizations within the country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. The score of Malaysia in power distance is 100, which is very high, and the score for Australia is 36, which is very low. For Malaysia, scoring high in power distance indicates that people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place where there is no further justification needed. Hierarchy in an organization is seen as reflecting inequalities, centralization, and subordinates are expected to be told what to do and they will just follow every instructions given. Meanwhile, for Australia, it's the other way around. In organizations, every individual employees will be expected to express their opinions, and usually communication is informal, direct, and participating. Individualism is defined as the degree of interdependence a society maintains among its members. In individualist societies, people are supposed to look after themselves and their direct family only. In collectivist societies, people belong in groups that take care of each other in exchange for loyalty. Australia scores 90 on this dimension, indicating a high individualist culture. This means that people are expected to look after themselves and their immediate families, and in organizations, employees are expected to be self-reliant and display initiative. Hiring and promotion decisions will also be based on performance of the employee. On the other hand, Malaysia scores 26, indicating a collectivist culture. In a collectivist culture, loyalty is the most important, so strong relationship is very important, where everyone takes responsibility for fellow members of their group. Relationships between employer and employee are perceived in moral terms similar to a family link. Also, hiring and promotion will take into account of the employees in a group. Australia and Malaysia have similarities in indulgence and long-term orientation dimension. Both Australia and Malaysia score high on indulgence, meaning both are indulgent countries where generally exhibit a willingness to realize their impulses and desires with regards to enjoying life and having fun. Scoring high on indulgence also means that they mostly possess positive attitude and optimism. In addition, they place a higher degree of importance on leisure time, act as they please and spend money as they wish. Scoring low in long-term orientation means both Malaysia and Australia have a normative culture. Long-term orientation distinguishes societies in being directed towards future rewards or the fulfillment of present needs and desires. Usually, a normative society have a strong concern with establishing the absolute truths. They are normative in their thinking. They exhibit great respect for tradition, a relatively small propensity to save for the future, and a focus on achieving quick results.
For this segment of the video, I want to look at David Ricardo's comparative advantage model. Established in the early 1800s, the comparative advantage model attempts to determine where the country has the lowest opportunity cost in a specific field and which type of product should they specialize in terms of what they should export and how can they yield the highest return. What can they achieve a comparative advantage with? And in order to determine whether the country has a comparative advantage, the principle used is called the RCA principle. Otherwise known as the revealed comparative advantage. A comparative advantage is so-called revealed if the country's RCA score is greater than 1. If the RCA is less than utility, the country is said to have a comparative disadvantage in this product. So, therefore, with Malaysia, if a product they're selling has a score greater than 1, a product they're exporting, if the score is greater than 1, then they have a comparative advantage in this field. So now that we've established RCA, we can now determine which products Malaysia should be exporting in order to maximize GDP, and also which products contribute the most to production. So we can see here on this screen, 21% of Malaysia's production is dedicated just to integrated circuits. So integrated circuits actually does have quite a high RCA, but if we combine all machinery, which makes up 49% of their exports, their RCA drops all the way to 0.94, indicating that they do not have a comparative advantage in this field and may want to consider other fields instead. Speaking of these other fields, what's next for Malaysia? That's the question. We can see here that we have plastics, rubbers, wood products, and precious metal. All of these products have one thing in common. They are natural resources for Malaysia. If they are able to maintain a competitive advantage by exporting these products, and as we can see for each of these units, they all have RCAs well above 1, and by identifying these units, Malaysia will be able to better contribute to GDP, the gross domestic product, improve the lifestyle of their citizens by boosting the efficiency of the economic sector and production sectors as well. For this next segment, we're going to look at Australia's production statistics and their gross domestic product. Ricardo's theory would suggest that Malaysia should shift towards selling their natural resources, and perhaps Australia should also take a similar approach. One example that comes to mind was the mining boom that occurred not so long ago and significantly boosted Australia's gross domestic product and created plenty of jobs. So let's get into what Australia should specialise in. So from our research, this one coming from the Australian Farmers Federation, Australian farmers produce almost 93% of Australia's daily domestic food supply, which is astronomical. As of 2016 to 2017, there are approximately 304,000 people employed in this industry, contributing immensely to the production here in Australia. And the other sector we'll be looking at is the mining sector. GDP from mining increased to $26 billion Australian in the first quarter of 2018 alone. That's an immense increase of $2 billion from the fourth quarter of 2017, not to mention the job creations in the sector, which we discussed just before. And on the next slide here, we can clearly see I've provided the RCA for each industry, and mineral products, so coal and iron, are far ahead. And same goes for animal products with very, very, very large RCAs. So the largest RCAs are in mining and the animal industry, both very large contributors to Australia's job sector and GDP, and are absolutely essential for Australian production. I've provided some statistics here that I found interesting. Coal had an RCA, a revealed comparative advantage, of 19, an astronomically high number, whilst in farming, frozen meat and sheep and goat meat had an RCA of 24. So we have a very, very clear comparative advantage here, and what Australia is very competitive in.
Through the analysis of the country of Malaysia, we have reached the following conclusions. From Christine part, the globalization process in Malaysia is very smooth. Although Malaysia is a developing country, it is one of the most successful countries in Southeast Asia. Since its integration into the world economy, this initiative has played a key role in the recent development of Malaysian economy, encouraging expansion to higher value-added and service-oriented manufacturing, essentially shifting from an architectural economy to an industrialized economy. But on the other hand, globalization has also brought negative effects to Malaysia, such as a cultural invention and a decline in domestic industrial competitiveness. In general, the benefits that globalization brings to Malaysia outweigh the disadvantage. From this part, in terms of economic development, Malaysia's tourism industry has provided strong support to Malaysia, and the government's preferential policies have also made the Malaysian market popular with foreign countries. From Vincent's part, the cultures are getting more disparate between Malaysia and Australia, although advancement in technologies might have some effect towards cultures around Malaysia and Australian values and respects traditions. Not only that, society in Malaysia is strongly collectivist and very hierarchical. Meanwhile, Australia is strongly individualist, where everyone is very independent, which is strongly contradicting with each other. From Ben's part, whilst Malaysia was initially able to maintain a comparative advantage in machinery, David Ricardo's theory was just otherwise. By identifying revealed comparative advantages, and these researchers have provided a solution for Malaysia to maximize GDP and production, increasing exploitation of naturally found resources.